you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new here. Hey, hello. My name is Angela and I make videos about law school, lawyer life, and all things in between. Today's video, we're going to be talking about some legal myths that are just super popular that have been going around. I've been seeing them and I decided I'm going to speak on this. I thought this video would be a fun one, specifically for those who are kind of pre-law. I know I have a lot of you guys here. Some of you guys are even in middle school already, which is crazy. That you guys are already thinking about your legal career. That is amazing. I was one of those people who I knew I wanted to be a lawyer since I was very, very young. So it's never too early. You're allowed to change your mind, but it's never too early to start thinking about it. So with that being said, let's jump into some of these legal myths. The first one, you hear it all the time. The kids say they want to be a lawyer because lawyers are rich. That is a huge legal myth that all lawyers are rich. Now, are there some lawyers who are rich? Yes. But you will find that the richest lawyers probably are not practicing law. Like, that's probably not how they're super, super rich. And I actually think I might do a video on the richest lawyers. So stay tuned for that. But back to the myth. All lawyers are not rich, okay? All jobs within the legal profession are not created equally. There are some lawyers making less than some teachers make. Now, is the legal field a good profession to go in if you do want to make, if you do want to be a higher earner? Yes, there are lots of opportunities for people to make a good living. So I won't say lawyers aren't paid well, but I will say not all lawyers are paid well, and certainly not all lawyers are rich. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about choosing your profession. If you're just in it for the money, just do a little bit of research, because lawyers will tell you we're not all rich. And another thing to consider is it costs a lot of money to become a lawyer. Okay, the next myth I have to talk about because it just grinds my gears, but settling a lawsuit does not mean you are guilty. Say it with me. Just because you settle a lawsuit does not mean you are guilty. Now, this is something that a lot of people who are not lawyers, which the proper term for that is laypersons, do not know. I see it a lot on social media specifically, but if somebody settles a lawsuit, they're like, oh, well, if they weren't guilty, why would they settle? There's a lot of reasons why you will settle, even if you are not guilty of whatever somebody is charging you with. And when you're settling, that means it's a civil lawsuit. So somebody has sued you. When I say guilty, I'm talking about, I really shouldn't use the term guilty. I should use the term liable. So if you hear of somebody settling a lawsuit, I wouldn't necessarily assume that they're admitting that they did anything wrong. Lawyers will tell you all the time that people settle. A lot of times the reason why people settle is because litigation, going to court and defending yourself, is super uber expensive, okay? It can be very, very expensive, and these things can be long and drawn out, and there's still a risk of not winning, and then you have to pay the other person, you have to pay lawyers' fees. Even if you do win, you've now paid these huge, humongous lawyer fees. So a lot of times people will settle just to minimize their risk of exposure of losing out on more and more money. So that's just something to keep in mind. In today's world, especially of social media, it is very, very hard not to be charged with guilt or liability in the court of public opinion, especially when someone settles a lawsuit. They're like, oh yeah, they did it, because why would you settle? Because they're smart, because their lawyers have advised them of the risk they are taking. And that's kind of, I didn't even have this one written down, but I want to piggyback on another myth. Just because somebody is suing you, it doesn't mean that they are telling the truth, and it doesn't mean that they even have a legitimate cause of action. We live in a world today where people will sue you because they know you have the money and they think it's worth the risk. It's no different than insurance fraud, workers' compensation fraud, where people are pretending like they are hurt because they want money. Unfortunately, not everybody is a good person. So that's just something to think about. The next myth is about lawyers and that we know all of the laws. Now, my lawyers and law students watching this, y'all are going to feel me on this. I cannot tell you how many times somebody in my family, or if I meet a stranger and they happen to figure out what I do for a living, you know, in conversation or something like that, and they're like, oh, you're gonna be my lawyer, or I have a traffic ticket. Or lawyers do not know all of the law. Just because you're a lawyer or a law student does not mean you know all of the laws. There are so many different practice areas for lawyers. Me, I'm a transactional lawyer. I am not a family law lawyer. If you ask me about divorce, I don't know. If you ask me about a traffic ticket, I don't know. Now, can I look it up and research it? Yes, but no more than you probably could. So I say that to say is just because somebody is a lawyer doesn't mean they can be your lawyer, doesn't mean they know anything about the practice area. And I really say this for my lay people, because just the amount of people that like ask me legal questions that have nothing to do with what I practice lets me know that when people hear lawyer, they think they know all the laws and I can ask them all the questions. And that would be amazing if somebody had the capacity to do that, but it's just a lot to know. So something to keep in mind. This next one, my true crime people are gonna feel me on this. So the myth is, if a person who has been arrested or detained asks for a lawyer, they are guilty. No, no, no. Just because you ask for a lawyer, just because you ask for your constitutional right to have representation, to have an attorney present, does not mean you're guilty. It means you're smart. I think majority of detectives and the police all have good intentions, and you know, they're really just trying to solve their cases and things like that, but they are human and they can be wrong. And there are people within that realm who do just try to pin something on somebody, because there are targets that they have to meet when it comes to closing cases, you know, solving cases. And so, you know, it can get very tricky when you are being questioned by the police officer. You know, especially if you are not guilty and you're just talking because you're like, I don't have anything to hide, you can find yourself in a lot of trouble. So having a lawyer present, somebody who knows the law, somebody who can advise you, is a smart thing to do. Even if you're not guilty, it is smart to ask for a lawyer. So that's just a myth that I wanted to bust right there. Just because somebody asked for a lawyer does not mean they are guilty. Okay, this next myth is for all of my future lawyers, my pre-law students, my law students. Here's a myth that I think a lot of people think, is that if you want to be a lawyer, you have to be good at public speaking and or you have to be extroverted. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Now, you're probably looking at me and you can probably tell that I don't have a problem talking in front of people and that I'm quite extroverted. However, that is not a requirement for the legal profession. There are many different types of practice areas that lawyers can practice. And so being a lawyer doesn't equal public speaking. There are many lawyers who don't even go to court, myself being one of them. In my main practice, court is not a thing. I'm a transactional lawyer. And so that's just a myth that I want to bust, is you don't have to be super extroverted. You don't have to be good at public speaking to be a lawyer. There's many lawyers who do a lot of research, a lot of writing. They hunker down in their offices. They're not dealing with people on a day-to-day basis, or they're dealing with clients kind of one-on-one in small, you know, intimate settings. So that's just a myth that I wanted to bust, because if you are thinking that you want to be a lawyer, but you don't like public speaking, you don't want to be a public speaker, that's fine. Just find a area of law that works best for you, so you're not having to talk in front of big crowds. The next myth, again, for my pre-law students, for my future lawyers, if you like to argue, you should go to law school. I feel like that is like one of the most common things I hear. I heard that as a kid, like, yeah, you're gonna be a good lawyer because you love to argue. And it's like, it's so much more than that. The profession is so much more than that. Arguing isn't like, it's not like, okay, I like to argue, green light, go. There's so much more that goes into the profession. Do you like to read? Do you like to write? Do you have reading comprehension skills? Are you analytical? You know, it's just, I think so many times lawyers are portrayed as these people who just get up and argue and fight for their client. And yes, they do that, but there's so much work that leads up to that that's not so glamorous and that's not so exciting, and honestly has nothing to do with arguing, that you really should just do your research a little bit more before saying, oh, yep, love to argue, going to law school. Okay, so last but not least, this one is also for my future lawyers, is the myth that your LSAT score determines your success as a law student and a lawyer. That is a complete myth, okay? Now, is the LSAT important for most schools, you know, to get into the school? And does it help determine what school you can get into, what scholarships you can have, etc.? Yes. However, LSAT score does not, I repeat, does not determine your success, neither as a law student or a lawyer. It is a standardized test, and even if you don't make the best score on it, you can overcome that. Your hard work, determination, dedication will determine your success as a law student or a lawyer. And I wanted to end that on this note because it's so, so, so important. I have had countless people tell me that they want to go to law school, but their LSAT score wasn't where they wanted to be. They got into school, but they don't think that they'll be successful because they didn't get a good LSAT score. And that's not to say that you shouldn't try to get the best score you can, but an LSAT score does not determine your success. I am a testimony to that, that my LSAT score, not good. And I have succeeded and continue to succeed in law school, in my legal career, and I will continue to succeed because I'm willing to put in the work, I'm determined, and I'm dedicated. Yeah, y'all, those are some of the legal myths that I wanted to go ahead and debunk for you guys because it's just crazy to me that some of these things are still widely kind of, you know, widely kind of told to people and believed by people. So if you have some other ones that you commonly hear, put them in the comments below. And if you have a question whether it's true, I'll answer it. Or if you just heard of things that you know aren't true, put them in so we can have a good laugh together. If you aren't following me on Instagram, do follow me at _theaspiringboss. I post on there as well every week. And we have an aspiring lawyers group, The Aspiring Lawyers. I'll link it down below. It's on Facebook. You guys can join that. So you guys can, it's just a community of lawyers and aspiring lawyers just supporting each other, and where you can kind of ask questions and connect with other legal-minded people. Lastly, I do offer one-on-one consultations. I just opened them up for January and they're already booked, but I will be opening up some for February here soon. So I will leave the link to that below if you guys want to talk about anything that has to do with your law school or legal journey, final exam strategy sessions, all sorts of things like that. I offer no legal advice, but again, I will put the link to book in the description box below. With that, you guys, thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.